Greetings, my fellow Igbos. It is important that I address you on this matter. Our common heritage, our history, is being bedeviled, fought by Reno Omokri. I know that the average Igbo would not realize that this is a matter of great importance. Unfortunately, the way we look at the world presently is if something is not giving us immediate returns, we do not know that they are important. Ordinarily, I would not know that a man like Reno Omokri exists. What is the basis? We are not colleagues. By the way, I'm a lawyer and an academic. He does not function in any of these two professions. I'm a historian. He's not a historian, even though he claims to be one. To be a historian, you have to receive training. There is no evidence that he has received training in any university to be a historian. But on Facebook, he claims to be a historian. So I take notice of this young man because Igbos flock after him. Fellow Igbos flock after him. And no matter how much you want to keep aloof where your people go, you are drawn there sometimes. And as Igbos we are discussing something he said, it flitted across my screen. Reno lied that the reason why Igbos were more susceptible to the slave trade was because of the Osu caste. And one other reason. And who do I blame for this? I blame the Igbo people. I wrote about the Osu. I repeat, I wrote about the Osu. The Igbos have not read this book as they should read it. The Osu is actually what proves that you Igbo people came from Israel. But because you don't want to read about it, probably because an Igbo wrote about it, your enemies are now using it to distort your history. And your children will read what your enemies say. The Osu is far from whatever 99.9% of the Igbo people think it was. The Osu were people who walked in your religious sanctuaries. That is who the Osus were. No governor in Igbo land is qualified to talk about the Osu. Bishop Obinna does not know anything about the Osu. He is a Catholic priest. I have spent 20 years non-stop researching the Igbos. When Bishop Obinna took up the task of talking about the Osu, if you are a patriotic Igbo, what you should have done is to give him this book. But Igbos don't function like that. If you don't belong to their clique, whatever you say falls by the wayside. So what is happening now? People like Omokri are using the Osu to fight you, to distort your history, so that when your children grow up, your children will not know anything about who they are. That is what is going on. How are we going to survive as a people if we don't change our attitudes? Some people hate my works because I found out what they should be celebrating. That the Igbo people came from Israel. What is hateful about that? You pride yourself on being an Afrocentric. Meanwhile, Afrocentrism was what misled the pre-modern or post-modern leaders of the Igbos. While the leaders of the Yoruba and the leaders of the Fulani were calculating about the advantages their people would have The Igbos, we are thinking about the whole of Africa. And where are we today? We have the short end of the stick. And we are still playing the Afrocentric card. Because you think you are an African, you do not want to look at a work or look at works done by your fellow Igbo. Why don't you read them and write them off and criticize them? If these do not have real life consequences, I will not be bothered. But an Igbo born 10 years ago will look at what Omokri has said about Osu and think that the Igbos were the worst people to exist in the world, while the Osu institution showed that the Igbos were the most humane people in the world at the time, 300 years ago. If you are over 30, if you are even under 30, but you have your ears open, you would know that by your menana, you cannot draw blood from an Osu. Our writers carelessly attached outcast to Osu because they read about a similar institution in India. The outcast in India, if his shadow crosses the shadow of the upper caste, he could be killed and there will be no consequences. The Eta in Japan, who are similar to the outcasts in India, same thing applies to them. A samurai could cut off their head and nothing will happen. Among the Igbo, the person that was Osu was sacrosanct. You cannot even tell him or her harsh words. Igbo people, how similar are these three groups that I listed? The Osu were priests in your religion. But when you decided to become Christians and hate your religion, you hated the Osu whom you found in your religion. That is the problem. Nothing more. And look at the culture and the history of the Israelites. You find the Osu central in the Hebrew Bible. But you are afraid of being who you are. So somebody who has no training in history, somebody who has no training in anthropology, somebody who is just a pastor, calls himself on Facebook a historian, and he has thousands of Igbo followers. Without Igbos, who is Omokri? Who will Omokri be? Who will know Omokri? How many Shekiri follow Omokri? I shake my head in sadness. Thank you.